What is the dumbest thing you got punished for in school? My French teacher did not like me for some reason I could never guess. Anyway, one day, during her exam, she came to my desk and accused me of cheating when I wasn't doing anything wrong. So, I protested and said I am not cheating. She then proceeded to take away my sheet and asked me questions on test verbally. I replied correctly to all her questions. Now that she knew that she got nothing on me, she wrote -5 on my sheet because of me daring to protest. I got detention for saying okay to my home economics teacher in middle school. Seriously, we were in class and she asked me to do something and I replied politely, okay. The teacher has a detention board and a day later I see my first name on it. I have a very common name and, joking with her, went haha that's for me, right? She said it was. I asked her what I did and she said it was because I replied okay to her when she asked me to do something and she hates when people do that. She just wants him to do it. I was stunned. I told her I wasn't going to detention. I got home and told my mom what happened. My teacher's son was in the same grade as my older sister, so my mom knew the teacher. She ended up calling her, and the teacher apparently was fumbling over her words, trying to justify the detention. The next day, she goes to me, "You served this detention, right?" As a wink-wink, nudge-nudge type of thing. I said no, and I'm not going to. She goes, "No, you served it, right?" I decided to just say sure, and that was that. In high school, the year I got there was the year they instituted a rule that you had to display your ID at all times while at school. If you didn't have your ID out, you could get detention. Due to reasons, I got to school about an hour before first bell and had zero way of getting back home or getting anything from home. Well, until the end of school, of course. So I get to school and realize, oh noes, I forgot my ID at home. Well, no problem, I'll just go to the office and get a temp one. Well, turns out I should have tried to make it through the day without my ID because I got detention anyway. And I knew that I had a greater than 95% chance of making it through the day without anyone who cared noticing I didn't have my ID out, but no, I tried to do the right thing. Well, fuck you, school, you taught me a terrible lesson. The school board, I know. Why don't we punish the people that do the right thing to help breed resentment? In 3rd grade, my mom had me do some experimental ADD medication thing that caused a bunch of weird tics and shit. Apparently, I kept making some face because my teacher drew 3 stars on a post-it note, and whenever I made the face, she crossed off a star. I lost all 3 and got 3 days in detention for recess. Plot twist, I didn't actually have ADD. I was diagnosed with Tourette's during 4th grade. It wasn't verbal, but I would have random tics such as a nodding head, and I would do a motion with my eyes that made it seem like I was rolling them. I wasn't even thinking about it, it would just happen. I got ISS and school suspension for my eye tic. My teacher was yelling at me for some reason I don't recall, and it made me nervous and it was out of control. My mom didn't really care and said it was an excuse. But when I told my papa, he called the teacher and gave me my first prepubescent justice boner. I once coughed in an exam and the invigilator thought I said pedo when I did it. Fast forward 6 months, and before mentioned teacher gets asked to leave, and it emerges he had been getting way too friendly with young students. Funny thing is that I genuinely just coughed. Methinks he may have had a guilty conscience. Got suspended for responding to the prompt, "What one item would you bring with you if you were a pioneer on the Oregon Trail?" With a rifle and bullets. I was in the 3rd grade. Dad took me squirrel hunting on the day I was suspended. Turned out better than expected. Edit. I think it's worth mentioning the teacher in question was only there for a year before the school fired her for the numerous complaints from parents. I was only one of many students she punished for silly reasons like that. Edit 2. No, it wasn't because I said 2 items. One of the rules of the activity is that we could bring additional items if those items were required to make the first item work and wouldn't be very useful on their own, i.e. bullets. I was suspended because she told administration that I had discussed inappropriate matters in class by referencing hunting. A teacher in my school said that Orlando was the state capital of Florida. I corrected him. He raised an eyebrow and said, "I think you'll find I'm right," before continuing. I said, "No, sir, it's definitely Tallahassee." His retort of, "I'm the one with the degree in geography," was met with "then you'd think you'd know," landed me in detention. I went to an extremely conservative Baptist high school in Guam. I was punished for some pretty insane things. Hair being too spiky, singing Feliz Navidad during Christmas time, too worldly of a song, and getting caught with DVDs of mainstream movies. I was eventually expelled when a group of the super religious students sold me out for drinking a beer at a friend's birthday party on a weekend. At this time, the drinking age in Guam was 18. I was 18 when drinking said beer. When I was in 4th grade, I was given detention for reading books too quickly. The teacher had divided the books by difficulty, and she thought I was stupid, so she put me at the lowest reading level, even though I was one of the smarter students in the class. I finished all of the books within the course of about 2 weeks. When I told her that I was finished with them and would like to start reading the more difficult books, she called me a liar and gave me a week's worth of detention, claiming there was no way that I could have read and understood those books so fast. I saw her a few years ago, and she was surprised that I'm on the dean's list at my college, let alone at the college I'm attending. I'm graduating from college next year with the intention on going to medical school. I think I can fucking read. Nothing. My 4th grade teacher was deliberately giving me lower grades for no real apparent reason. My dad actually took a night to calculate the grades I was making with all the homeworks and tests and things I had, and said I was actually making as in BS. Edit. Now I think about it, this was the same woman that had a problem with me reading ahead and completing tasks in the textbooks we had. I was bored or just saw things I could already do, mostly. When I was in elementary school, the teacher failed to arrive on time to the class, so I got bored and made the class form a line, told them since the teacher wasn't there we were going to recess. They all followed and agreed. I was the mastermind behind the whole operation, so my parents got called and I was suspended for a day. Got punished for being punished. Teacher kicked me out because I was a minute late, honestly, so I was chilling outside the class when the principal walks by and gives me an earful about delinquency and indiscipline. Real douchebag had to stick up his ass at the time and threatened to call my parents. Starts spouting bullshit on the phone. So I interrupted and told him that he cannot speak to my parents in such a way, especially when he is not speaking the truth. Gets frustrated and suspends me for 2 days. I have no idea what was wrong with him, but I enjoyed those 2 days. When I was 12, I became ill and had to take time off school. I was off for 3 months straight before going back on a part-time timetable. The slightest bit of exercise would leave me exhausted. I lost weight from not being able to eat, and I looked terrible. So why did I get into trouble? For not taking part in cross-country running. I wasn't alone that day. The girl with the broken leg also got into trouble. I was once told I was not allowed to use the restroom. I was in a career and tech program during high school where I would go to another school for half the day. From there, I would ride a bus to our middle school. I would then wait for my bus to go home. One day, as I was waiting for the bus, I went to go use the bathroom. I was stopped by the vice principal and told I was not allowed to enter the building. I am not an argumentative guy, so I say nothing. I then wait till when she is not near the entrance, and I walk into the principal's office. Told him what had happened. He told me it was ridiculous and it would not happen again. It in fact did not happen again. I got attention only once in high school. See, freshman year we had a brand new high school building, so there were strict no food/only water rules in effect that pretty much everyone ignored by senior year. Especially my English teacher, who didn't care if students showed up with mugs of tea. On that fateful day, I borrowed a tea bag from a friend who was also going to do tea, but we got spotted by a teacher in the hall who saw I had tea and ordered me to dump it out. She saw my friend's mug, but friend insisted it was just water, and the tea hadn't gone through yet, so it looked like dirty water, definitely not clear. So she was scot-free, but I just kept walking to the classroom promising I would dump out said tea in the water fountain, but of course didn't. Anyway, this teacher blew a gasket that I disrespected her, so I got detention. I know I was clearly a wild, out-of-control kind of teenager. For me, it was whole class detentions. I was always the quiet kid who would get on with work and was rarely disruptive in class. Most of the teachers were well aware of this. But sometimes I would end up in detention because some people were misbehaving and the teacher simply held the entire class back, including the well-behaved ones. It happened quite a few times and I really hated it. The justification was that the good kids would pressure the bad kids. Somehow, how teachers thought a shy, quiet kid like me could pressure the class dickheads to keep quiet, I really don't know. I was in elementary school. There was this strange circular dome, jungle gym thing out on the playground. I thought it would be fun to hang upside down on it and then let myself fall onto the ground. I did this 5 or 6 times in a row, just dropping myself down on my head. The recess supervisor got real upset with me and brought me in to speak with the principal. I had my recess privileges revoked for 2 weeks. Edit. Cannot believe I got gold for my childhood stupidity. Thank you so much. I got an in-school suspension for not attending an optional assembly. Not only that, but because I was suspended, I got kicked out of the National Honor Society. I had my teacher sign permission to stay in his room. We had a new principal who was trying to establish dominance. I've never hurt anyone, but I really wanted to punch his smug face. Standing near the end of the line. After recess and lunch break in grade 5, we had to line up to re-enter the school. I was near the back, and after about half the line made it back into school, the on-duty teacher stopped the line because the guys now at the front were causing some sort of ruckus. By the time those of us behind the ruckus were let in, we were a few minutes late for class. My teacher, Mr. Binder, yes, for real, had a temper. While the other teachers accepted why some kids were late, Mr. Binder kept all of us that were late in for detention at the next lunch break. Another Mr. Binder story. Everyone in my class had a 30-minute slot on the classroom computer each week. My slot on this particular day came right after we got back from music class. Since it was my turn, I went over to the computer. The monitor was off. So, thinking that the computer was also off, I hit the power button, which turned off the computer, which made Mr. Binder lose his work and therefore his shit. Fucker should learn to save his work often. Everyone in the school got punished for wearing socks with logos, Nike, Adidas, etc. on them. I went to a Catholic school until 8th grade, and the same nun had been principal of the school for most of that time. We obviously had a pretty strict uniform to abide by, but for whatever reason, she had a true disdain for socks with logos on them. So, at one of our school assemblies, she spends about 10 minutes talking about the dress code and awful we are to be wearing socks and not respecting the dress code. Well, as the mature Catholic children we are, nearly all students agree to wear knee-high socks with logos on them. Roughly 15 minutes into our coup, the principal comes to each classroom individually and goes absolutely nuts. A tear-filled tirade about socks to each classroom that all other classrooms can hear through thin walls. It was glorious. She never came back after that day. First year of high school, only been at the school for about 7 or 8 weeks, and I got sent to the focus room. What we call detention pretty much, for wearing black socks instead of blue or white. I went to a public high school, and it was the principal that saw me, and she had to literally get on her hands and knees to check the color. Age 10, year 5 in England. About 100 of us are sat in the main hall having a music lesson. So she's trying to teach everyone to sing in rounds. I think that's what it's called, where you overlap lines with previous line, etc. Anyway, we're doing a part that requires a few of us to sing in harmony, and much like J.K. Simmons in Whiplash, she notices someone is singing flat. She eventually whittles it down to me, and in front of everyone she says, "No, it's like this, a hey ah and see. Me, a teacher. No, hey aha. Me, a dash teacher. Right, well if you're going to waste my time, I will waste yours." I spent my lunch break standing outside the staff room staring at the floor. I cannot sing. End of. I hate singing now, and I largely blame this on that stupid teacher that couldn't tell the difference between a kid being an arsehole and one with no talent. Thanks, Mrs. Hammond. I remember having a really shitty 4th grade teacher who sent me to the principal's office because I told her I didn't understand what the math question was asking. She asked me what part 1 didn't understand. I said all of it. She said I was lying and then punished me for it. On the bright side, the principal said I did nothing wrong and just let me hang out with her for the rest of the day. In high school, I had a camera confiscated and the administration wrote me up and threatened to suspend me for breaking their policy on video cameras, phones, and other distracting technology. I was the photographer for the student newspaper, and the camera I was using was the school's property, not my personal camera. A few weeks later, the cafeteria was used for a commercial without any notice to students or teachers. I think it was for lunch meat. They had 3 to 4 large cameras, and they brought in paid actors instead of using actual students as extras. They ended up filming during lunchtime, so no actual students had any place to eat. After hearing all of the complaints and talking to my newspaper advisor, I had the camera again and went to take pictures of the commercial and the display students in the hallway, only to have it confiscated and written up again. I got some suspension and academic probation for having a MySpace. This was at a small, hyper-conservative Christian high school. I still remember the day. Every student who had a profile with anything the liberals or evil administration objected to listing secular bans on your music preferences, any sort of swearing, etc., got their parents called in. The superintendent had every profile printed off, and he had highlighted what he thought was bad. I think they were probably on thin ice legally speaking, as similar events at other religious high schools ended up with the ACLU suing and winning, but it never came to that. Rather, the school closed down after my senior year because it was so poorly managed. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.